I never imagined that the child I once rocked to sleep would one day look at me the way she did that afternoon. I am 68 years old now. My hands no longer as strong as they once were. My back often aching before the day has even begun. Yet, until recently, I believed my heart was still useful in this house. I believed love still counted for something. When my husband passed away 8 years ago, the house became unbearably quiet. The walls felt too big, the nights too long. That was when my daughter suggested I come live with her. She said it would be good for all of us. She had 2 young children, a busy job, and a husband who traveled often. "You won't be alone anymore, Ami," she said, her voice warm and convincing. I packed my memories into 2 suitcases and told myself this was what family was meant to be. At first, it felt almost peaceful. I woke early, made tea, and watched the morning light fall across the kitchen floor. I helped with small things, packing lunches, folding laundry, telling my grandchildren stories before bed. No one asked me to do these things. I did them because love doesn't keep a list. But slowly, quietly, the request changed. "Can you cook every day? I'm too tired after work. Can you pick up the kids and keep them till night? Can you clean the house properly? You're home anyway." Each sentence landed heavier than the last. I told myself not to be sensitive. She's busy, I thought. This is what mothers do. Still, something inside me began to shrink. I noticed how my name was no longer used, only instructions. No one asked how my knees felt after standing all day, or why I woke up coughing at night. One evening, I finally sat down. My legs were swollen, my head spinning slightly. I hadn't eaten since morning. When my daughter walked in and saw the dishes still in the sink, her face hardened. "What did you do all day?" she asked, not even looking at me. I laughed softly, trying to ease the moment. "I'm not feeling well today. I thought I'd rest a bit." That's when it happened. She crossed her arms and said, very calmly, as if discussing the weather, "If you're going to live here, you need to work. I can't afford another mouth that doesn't contribute." I stared at her, not fully understanding. "Work?" I repeated. "Yes, take care of the house, the kids, everything. I'm not paying you for it. If that's a problem, you can find somewhere else to live." The room went silent, but inside me, something shattered loudly. I wanted to remind her of the nights I stayed awake when she had fevers, of the jewelry I sold to pay her college fees, of the years I spent putting everyone before myself. But the words stuck in my throat. All I could manage was a whisper. "I'm your mother." She shrugged. "That doesn't change reality." That night I lay awake on the small bed in the corner room. The ceiling fan hummed above me, each rotation counting the seconds of my humiliation. I realized that somewhere along the way, love had been replaced by usefulness. I was no longer a mother. I was unpaid labor with an expiration date. The next morning, I watched my hands as I made breakfast. They trembled slightly. These hands had held newborns, buried a husband, wiped countless tears. And now they were expected to scrub floors in exchange for a roof and silence. For the first time, a dangerous thought entered my mind. What if I leave? It scared me. I had nowhere to go, no income, no plan. But beneath the fear, there was something else, something I hadn't felt in years. A quiet, stubborn spark of dignity. As I cleared the table, my daughter handed me a list. Chores, timings, expectations. At the bottom, she had written, "This is the least you can do." I folded the paper carefully and placed it in my pocket. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply nodded. But inside, I knew this was not the least I could do. This was the moment everything began to change. I kept that folded piece of paper in my pocket the entire day, its sharp edges pressing against my thigh like a reminder I couldn't escape. Every time I moved, I felt it there. Her handwriting, her rules, her quiet threat. I moved through the house like a shadow, doing everything that was written on that list. But something inside me had shifted. I was no longer doing it out of love. I was doing it because I was watching, learning, preparing. The house was never truly quiet. Even when no one was home, it echoed with expectations. I woke before sunrise, my joints stiff, my head heavy from another restless night. I made breakfast, packed lunches, ironed clothes. I swept the floor slowly because my back refused to bend the way it once did. Still, I pushed myself. Not because I wanted to please her, but because I needed clarity. I needed to understand how I had become invisible in a place I once believed was safe. My grandchildren were the only light. They didn't see me as a burden. To them, I was warmth. They hugged me without asking what I had done that day. They told me about school, about small fears and big dreams. When they laughed, I felt my chest loosen a little. and that made what I was planning even harder. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I overheard my daughter on the phone. She didn't know I was nearby. She laughed and said, "At least I don't need to hire help. She's old, but she's useful." Old, but useful. I stood there holding a small sock in my hand, feeling as though someone had reached inside my chest and squeezed my heart. Useful, like a machine, that still runs barely, as long as it's not replaced. In that moment, something hardened inside me. Not anger, something colder. Resolve. That evening, when everyone was asleep, I opened the small bag I kept hidden at the back of my cupboard. Inside were documents I had carried with me all these years, my ID, bank papers, and a thin envelope I had never opened since my husband's death. I sat on the bed, the room dim except for a small lamp, and finally allowed myself to face my reality. I did have something. Not much, but enough. A small savings account my husband and I had kept for emergencies. I had never touched it because I believed family would never let me fall. How foolish that sounded now. Over the next few days, I began making quiet arrangements. I spoke softly, asked careful questions, listened more than I spoke. I learned where my daughter kept household bills, how much she depended on me without admitting it. I realized that if I disappeared, her world would not collapse, but it would shake. And yet, guilt followed me everywhere. At night, it whispered in my ear, "She is your daughter. She is stressed. She doesn't mean it." I argued with myself until my head ached. But then I remembered her voice, calm and cold, work for free or leave. I wasn't asking for luxury. I wasn't asking for praise. All I wanted was respect, a chair at the table that didn't feel temporary, a place in her life that wasn't conditional. One morning, my body finally gave me a warning I couldn't ignore. My vision blurred while cooking. The room spun, and I had to grip the counter to stay upright. When my daughter came in, she looked annoyed rather than concerned. "Be careful," she said, not unkindly but not lovingly either. "I can't afford you getting sick." "Not you matter. Not are you okay? Just inconvenience." That was the moment my decision became final. I spent that afternoon sitting by the window, watching strangers pass by, each carrying their own lives. I realized something painfully simple. No one was going to save me. Not my daughter, not time. If I wanted dignity, I would have to choose it myself, even if it meant walking away with nothing but my pride. That night, I folded her list again, neatly. I placed it back on the table where she would see it in the morning. Then I packed my bag slowly, deliberately, as if each item was a goodbye to the woman I used to be, the one who believed love meant endurance. I didn't sleep much. My heart was heavy, but my mind was strangely calm. By dawn, I was ready. I left before anyone woke up. The sky was still pale, that quiet shade between night and morning where the world feels undecided. I moved softly through the house, careful not to wake the children. I stood for a moment at their bedroom door, watching their chests rise and fall, memorizing their faces as if I were about to travel very far. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I had cried enough in that house. I placed a note on the kitchen table, next to the folded list. My handwriting shook slightly, but my words were clear. I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. I simply wrote that I was leaving to protect what little dignity I had left, and that I hoped one day she would understand that a mother is not free labor. She is not a convenience. She is a person. When I stepped outside, the air felt cold but honest. For the first time in years, no one was waiting for me to cook, clean, or comply. The silence was mine. It frightened me, and it freed me. I stayed the first few nights in a small rented room I found through an old friend from my neighborhood. It wasn't much. A narrow bed, a single chair, a window that looked out onto another building's wall. But when I sat down, no one handed me a list. No one counted my usefulness. I could breathe. My body took time to adjust. The exhaustion I had been carrying for years finally demanded attention. I slept deeply, waking only when my joints ached or my heart felt heavy with memory. Some mornings I missed my grandchildren so much it physically hurt. I wondered if they would ask where I had gone, if anyone would explain, or if my absence would be folded into their lives as quietly as my presence once was. A week passed before my daughter called. Her voice was sharp at first, confused, angry. She asked where I was, why I had embarrassed her, how she was supposed to manage everything alone. I listened without interrupting. For once, I didn't rush to soothe her. When she finally paused, I spoke calmly. I told her I was safe. I told her I needed respect, not instructions. I told her that love without dignity is not love, it is survival. She accused me of being dramatic, of abandoning the family, of choosing pride over responsibility. I let her words fall without catching them. Then I said something I had never said to her before. I raised you to stand on your own. Now I am doing the same for myself. She hung up. That night I cried. Not because I regretted leaving, but because letting go of a child, even an unkind one, tears at a mother in ways nothing else can. Still, beneath the grief, there was peace, quiet, choice. Over time, small things began to heal me. I cooked only when I wanted to. I rested without guilt. I started helping at a local community center a few hours a week. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. People thanked me. They asked my name. They listened when I spoke. Months later, my daughter came to see me. That night I cried. Not because I regretted leaving, but because letting go of a child, even an unkind one, tears at a mother in ways nothing else can. Still, beneath the grief, there was peace, quiet, choice. Over time, small things began to heal me. I cooked only when I wanted to. I rested without guilt. I started helping at a local community center a few hours a week. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. People thanked me. They asked my name. They listened when I spoke. Months later, my daughter came to see me. She looked tired, older. For the first time, she sat across from me without authority in her posture. She didn't apologize the way I had once imagined she would, but she said something else. She said she hadn't realized how much she depended on me, and how easily she had mistaken dependence for entitlement. I told her I loved her, and I told her I would never live under conditions again. We are learning slowly what our relationship can be now. It is fragile, honest, different. I am still an old woman. My body still aches. My hair is grayer than before. But when I look at myself now, I see someone I recognize again. Not a worker. Not a burden. Just a woman who finally chose herself.